What's up, guys? I'll give it a few minutes until everyone shows up and then we'll get started. What did everyone trade today? Let's give it a minute or so and then I'm gonna get started. You guys green or red today? Trying to cut some motherfuckers off right now and they're not letting me finesse through. Oh my god, finesse. Perfect. Alright. Another minute and then I'm gonna start. Oh, IGC's $4. Awesome. Very, very good. Alright, fuck it, I'll start anyway. I don't give a shit. So what happened today? All right, so going into the day, the biggest thing on my radar was IGC and ACHP. And IGC, very simple. There was a 360 resistance level, so I was shorting as much as I could at 360. Covered for like 20 cents, so that was good. So it got to my level, I shorted, I made money, and that was it. Fuck it, right? That trade's over. Put my focus on ACHP. So why was I focused on ACHP, right? So if you look back at the daily chart, you could see that the last two times that it ran on volume was 27 million shares. It went up and it just unwound all day and closed at the low of the days. And the other time I think was 17 million shares that it ran up all the way and then it closed at low of the days. So I recognize that this stock, when it gets volume, it tends to still, spike up in the morning and then close at the low of the day. So seeing that it did that the past two times, I thought it would also do it the third time because it made sense, right? If the last two times it ran up on volume and it closed at the low of the days, there's probably a high chance that's going to do the same thing this time when it runs on volume. And the way I kind of approached this thing was I really, really, really wanted it to go to $5 at the open. But at the open, it kind of went to $4.50, so I was kind of shorting in the 450s a little bit and covering along the way. And then I thought to myself, okay, if the last couple times it had the morning move and it started to unwind after 10:30 or 11 o'clock, that's what happened last time. So I assumed the same thing would happen this time. So I went into it today with the mentality that once the top is formed, which ended up being 450, that it'd probably have a bunch of lower highs and trade under VWAP and then eventually essentially break under 4 and then unwind to 350. And that was the plan, that was the thought process. And what ended up happening was every time it went to $4, there was some sort of bid prop or there was someone that was kind of showing like 50,000 shares and then pulling it and then 60,000 shares and then pulling it. So every time I saw something like that happen, it kind of gave me more conviction that, someone is stuck long and they're trying to prop the stock up to get the exit on the ask and stuff like that. And it did work out a couple times, They pushed it to 440 and then they stuffed it to 420. Then they pushed it to 430 and stuffed it to 410. And then it broke under 4 like one or two times. And then, the third time I think it was that it broke under 4 is when it started to act like a little bit of trouble. So what ended up happening was that last time that it broke under 4, like that looked like it was the end of it. That looked like it was done. That looked like it was not coming back. That looked like it was game over. So I added there, right? I added there because it finally broke 4 with volume, and I was convinced that that was it. It made the morning move at 450. It had lower highs, it had a bunch of stuff moves at 430 and 440. It was under VWAP and now it was under the whole number 4. So it just made sense that that level, I think it was at 10:30 a.m. or some shit, is when that happened. So seeing all of those signs, it gave me the conviction I needed to size in and be patient with it. But what ended up happening is like that was like the last fake out before they really like turned up the volume and started to kind of trap everyone. And also another thing that I kind of pay attention to is borrow availability. If every broker has the borrow easy to borrow, there's a high chance that it's going to be crowded. If the brokers out there don't have it easy to borrow and you have to locate it and some of them have it blocked, that gives me more conviction because there's less competition on the short side. So I think I heard that like the borrow wasn't too readily available, and you know, it was some sort of it was a little bit of an expensive borrow. I think I paid like 4 cents a share or something like that. So, excuse me. So it had all the signs that I kind of needed to see. So the last 2 times that it ran on volume, it pulled back. It was under VWAP, it was under 450, and it kind of was acting under 4. So sizing into that setup just made sense to me. You know, I was up a decent amount, you know, maybe 10 or 20,000, but I said, you know, that's not what I'm going for. I'm not going for the 10, 20, 30 cent scalp, right? I'm trying to go for the trade that makes the most sense to me. And the trade that made the most sense to me is if it breaks under 4, it's probably going to go to 380, and then it's going to go to 350, and that's my cover zone. So again, I let it do its thing, and I had my size while it was kind of consolidating around the 4, 10, and 4 level. And long story short, what ended up happening is after it broke down to 4, I guess they just trapped everyone. They got the volume turned up and they pushed it. So as soon as they pushed it, I had a choice to make. I say, do I want to be stubborn or do I want to do the right thing and take it off for a loss, which is always the right move. It is always the right move to take it off for a loss, especially if, you know, your plan is not working anymore. The plan was if it breaks 4, it's supposed to go to 380 and then unwind to 370, 360, 350. But what ended up happening was the opposite. They broke 4 and then they just fucking fucked everyone. So I took the loss, and I lost like 20 grand on 100,000 shares. So lost 20 cents, not really a big deal. You know, I was short in the, I don't know, the 430s, and I stopped at 450. You know, normal fucking makes sense to me. I took the size because, you know, it was under 4 and it made sense. So fast forward to what happens next. It goes to 370 and 380, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, the next level that I need to short is $5, right? Because that's where I wanted in the morning, and now it's looking like it's getting there, and yada, yada, yada. So it gets to the 479 or 481 or some shit like that. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, I'm waiting. And then it kind of snaps back under 450. And then it goes to like 420, I think it was. And I'm thinking to myself in the back of my head, okay, the breakout was 450 and it squeezed everyone out to 480. And now the shorts are out and maybe there's more longs in it. And it immediately pulled back to 450. So I'm thinking to myself like, shit, like, this just pulled back. This did its squeeze move. This did its stuff move. This did its move on volume. You know, if 450 doesn't hold, it's probably going to break down again because now it's long crowded. Now the shorts are out, and it just makes sense to me now. So I started reshorting once, you know, that top was confirmed. So the top was confirmed at 480, and then it went back down to 450, which was the previous resistance that now became support. So once it was under that 450 level, I started reshorting in the 430s and 440s, thinking to myself like, okay, you know, it just did its move. It pulled back. It went under VWAP. It tested 418. You know, it just makes sense. It makes sense. At 418, then bounced like 440, and there was a bunch of hidden sellers and a bunch of hidden buyers and stuff like that. So I retried it, and you know, my mentality was, okay, you know, the plan is going to be, if it stuffs 450, you know, you're going to keep adding short. But if it breaks over 450, like, it has a real shot to go back to the high of the days. And I want to get out before that because I want to have as little loss as possible. Because again, dude, if I'm in there with 80,000 shares, 100,000 shares, each 10 cents is $8,000 to a $10,000 loss, right? So I thought to myself, okay, if 450 breaks, there's a very high chance that it's going to test 470 again. So I would rather cover at 450 in anticipation that it's going to go higher rather than cover at 470 and have a bigger loss, right? So I ended up, he tested like 420 a couple times and then 430, and then I was just like, motherfucker, like, are you going to lose it or are you going to ramp or what the fuck are you going to do? Like, enough is enough. Just pick a side and just like, you know? So what ended up happening is, you know, as soon as I saw that there was a bunch of big sellers getting filled and like a bunch of bids like kind of supporting and then volume coming in again, I was just like, fuck this, I'm out. I don't give a shit, I'm out, I'm eating loss, I don't give a fuck. So at that point, again, I had 80,000, 100,000 shares, and I maybe like at 430, 432 average because I kept adding to my winner and stuff like that. And I stopped out at 446 to 450. And at that point, I was like, fuck it, I'm done. I don't give a shit. I lost another $20,000. So I was like, all right, like I'm okay with that. I had my risk in mind. I had my size in mind. Moving that much size on a stock like that is very, very difficult. There's a lot of slippage. There's a lot of problems that could happen. But, I was comfortable taking that size because the setup made sense to me. The last 2 times it ran on volume, it pulled back and closed at the low of the days. It made sense that this time that it also had volume, it was probably going to pull back and close at the low of the days as well. So that was my plan, that was my anticipation. And I laid out my exit zones just in case something went wrong, which was 450 both times. And fast forward after that, we're at fucking $5. We're at 520. What are we at right now? But fast forward to, so I covered at 450 and I was like, good, perfect, done. And then it goes to $5. So now I think to myself in the back of my head, if I didn't cover at 450 like I was planning, I would have had another 50-cent loss on size, which could have been easily $30,000, $40,000 loss. You know what I'm saying? So I did the right thing. Again, I did the right thing. And that's the thing that I want to kind of emphasize on, is that, the losses suck. The losses are big, but it's all relative, man. It's all relative. Like I went in with a plan. That, I'm going to take size on this position because every single time it runs on volume, it always pulls back. And this time was the outlier that it didn't really pull back. And, I accept that because next time that it does it, it's probably going to pull back as well. So again, losses suck, but the saying is you either win or you learn. And I learned. You know what I'm saying? I learned to kind of recognize that, even though there's a bunch of fake bidders and fake offers and a bunch of fake shit, it never really convincingly broke down under 4. So I never should have been convincingly using size. It just makes sense. And I did very well sticking to my rules and stopping out. The first trade, I stopped out at 450. Beautiful. Went to 480. Saved myself 30 cents more of a loss. This trade, I stopped at 450, went to 520, saved myself 60, 70 cents worth of a loss. You know what I'm saying? So it just made sense to me. And yes, it was past 10:30 and it was past 11, so that was breaking my rules. But the reason why I was still in that trade is because the last time that it ran after 10:30 is when it pulled back. So using that knowledge from the last time kind of gave me the conviction that I was, looking for, or the conviction I needed. So again, losses suck. It doesn't really faze me too much. If I'm making $10,000 a day and I lose $40,000, that's 4 days of work. I'm still up $200,000 on the month, so it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter to me because I'm trading based more on the process rather than the P&L, right? So I'm more focused and thinking to myself, okay, if this trade is a winner, if this trade is a 20 in blackjack, I'm going to size into it and I'm going to let the profits follow after. I'm not going into the trade thinking, okay, I got to make 5,000 a day, I got to make 10,000 a day, I got to make 20,000 a day. I go into every trade with the idea that the process is more important and I size in accordingly based on how much conviction I have in the trade. And if I have a lot of conviction on this specific trade, if it shows that every single time and fades on day one, I'm going to take size on day one because it fades on day one based on the daily chart. So you never know what's going to happen. Maybe it's going to just unwind towards the end of the day and pull back and stuff like that. But the reality is I had a plan. I stuck to it. I sized in according based on my plan. And, sometimes it doesn't work out. If tomorrow's the day, so be it. But today on the daily chart, it looked like day one, it doesn't hold its gains. So again, it is what it is. And this is trading and I'm not going to win every time. And the fact that I like to do these recaps on days that I lose more than days that I win just goes to show that this is my video diary, right? This is my video diary of my losses. So I could kind of go back every day and look at it again and say, okay, what happened, right? What happened? Before I was losing on setups that weren't my setups. I was losing on stocks above $10. I was losing on stocks that didn't make sense to me. And now I'm losing on stocks that are my bread and butter setups that just don't work. And that's okay with me. It's not okay if I'm losing on stocks that are not my setup, but it's okay if I'm losing stocks that are my setup because I love my process. My process makes sense to me and it shows. The process shows that it works. You know what I'm saying? It was just a trap today and I accept that. And you know what? If tomorrow I don't make it all back, so be it. I don't give a shit. I'm just going to focus on trading well tomorrow. And if the profits follow, they follow. I'm still doing really well in the month. I always judge myself based on my month rather than my week or my day or whatever the hell it is. And at the end of the day, if I lose 10 or 20% of my month, yeah, it fucking sucks. But I'm still up 6 figures. So it doesn't really matter because, I keep trading well and the money keeps following. And the way I'm thinking about it is if I average $10,000 a day, this is less than a week's worth. You know, I didn't ruin a month's worth. I didn't ruin 2 months' worth. I didn't ruin 6 months' worth. But this was a trade that, you know, convinced me that I should be in with size. This is a trade that gave me conviction based on the past probabilities that have happened. And you know what? Shit, man. Shit, like, it is what it is. Bao was more focused on the long on this, and he nailed it, right? So me and Bao don't always have the same opinions, but, you know, I took his opinion into play, and I said, okay, you know, like, it makes sense. It makes sense. Like, yeah. So I'm going to either stop out at 450 or, you know, yeah. I don't know. It is what it is. Like, yeah, I'm pissed. Yeah, it sucks. Like, yeah, my day's ruined. Like, probably going to, like, be pissed and, like, watch TV and, like, just, like, hate myself for the rest of the day. But, you know, tomorrow's a new day, and there's always going to be more plays tomorrow. Like, IGC is ramping. What's IGC trading at now? Thing is, I trust my process, so I accept that 9 times out of 10 I'm going to win, and this is the 1 time out of 10 that I'm not going to win. So I have to protect myself. I have to stop out where I need to be, and you know what? Like, fuck, man. Like, I stopped out well at 450, and you know, what could I do? What could I do? I wasn't stubborn. I wasn't, you know, stopping out at the highs. I recognized that if 450 is going to break, the trade's not going to work. So rather than wait to see that 450 breaks and then go to fucking 470 and 480, I said, fuck it. Heat it all at 450, take it off. And my mentality is, like, if it didn't break after 2 tries, it's probably not going to break today, so I'm taking the day off. I don't want to go and continue trading emotionally. I don't want to continue to be trading when my mindset isn't right just to be revenge trading. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to be revenge trading. And to protect myself from revenge trading, eliminate myself from the equation. Go for a drive. Go get some food. Leave the house. Do something different, right? Do something different. So fuck, dude. If it ends up tanking at the end of the day, fuck you, stock market. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, fuck you. Like, I can't do shit about it. But, you know, if we go to fucking $6, tomorrow, you better believe I'm going to be excited to attack that. Because now we have day 2. We have an extended move. We have a bunch of warning signs. We have chart resistance. We have a bunch of shit. So, again, you know, losses suck, but it's all relative. It's all relative. This is just 4 days of work for me. You know what I'm saying? If today's Thursday? Today's Thursday. I made $100 grand on Monday. I made 10 grand on Tuesday. I made 10 grand on Wednesday, and I lost 40 grand today. I'm still up 80 grand on the week. Who gives a shit? You know what I'm saying? Who gives a shit? So, again, it's all relative. It's all relative. I stuck to my process. I stuck to my plan. I stuck to my desired exit spots, my desired entry spots. And you know what? Yes, I had size on because the trade made sense to me. And every single time the trade makes sense to me, I'm going to take size on it. That's just it. Every time I get 2 jacks in blackjack, I'm going to bet big on it. Even if it doesn't work, I know that the probabilities are that it's going to work out more times than it's not. And this is one of the times that doesn't work out. So what do? I control my risk. I control my risk. I stop out where I need to stop out, make sure I don't lose more than a week's worth of work. And fuck, man. Again, this is my video diary. This is where I kind of go back over the weekend and kind of review myself and kind of see, like, what I did right and what I did wrong, and, you know, how I can improve from it. And today, how can I improve from it? Do not take size until it was confirmed that it was under 4. Use it as a lesson. So that's basically it, guys. That's basically it. Oh, fuck, I think I'm getting pulled over.